So we moved the lecture from 103, where it was going to be, into 305 here, and we did that because Yasmin is required to be in religious services on Friday afternoon, and so I'm going to record this for her. And actually, it makes this a good opportunity for the rest of us if we can make a kind of a selection of these, or a file of these things. Then if I have to be out of town or something, we can, whittle on somehow. All right. You know when the labs are and everything. I'm here pretty much all the time. I have class all day on Tuesday, as some of you know. I'm hearing Phil Snyder talk in the other lab. Is there a way to turn that off? I don't know if you can. Okay. I have class all day Tuesdays, and of course with you all day Fridays. Other than that, I'm generally here in the afternoons, and on Wednesday I'll be here most of the time. All right, so if you need me for any particular reason, make sure you just let me know. My office hours are real early in the morning. Don't know what time you all get here, but if you need to talk to me, I'm always in my office by 7-ish. So please try to do that. Okay, now the course goals and objectives are on page 2, and this is pretty specific, the stuff that we're going to do. I'm going to have to go tell them to stop this. All right, I can't handle this. Just hold on a minute.
Okay, who has gotten the book so far?
I talked to the people at the bookstore. They're gonna mail them to
Oh. For this first assignment, you can use the one that's the lab materials. So just go onto the server.
I'm sorry, I love your voice, Phil, but I don't hear my voice.
I'm sorry.
Everything that was going on, I hear it on the last one.
So, yeah.
Yeah, so did you see this one?
There you go. I don't think you've been recording.
Well, what in the world is that now? All right, that changed. Whatever you did, you just changed here, so that's different now. Okay. All right. So this is a class not about, and not so much about how to use color, because using color is a graphic design principle. What this is all about is reproducing color. So if somebody chooses a given color, it's our job to reproduce it. Now, if you happen to pick up that print guidelines document that I put at the back there, you know that it's supposed to be blue and white, right? A blue and white striped sheet. I've called it that 1,000 times. I decided to make a few extra copies today, and we're sending Wally back, so it's not it's not connected. So I sent it to one of the machines on the second floor, Marvin. And if you ever heard the story, I hate Marvin the Martian, and so that machine is named Marvin the Martian. And anyway, that's what it did. It made pink instead of blue. So we're talking about a lot of issues with regards to reproduction. Anyway, so we're not talking about design with color. Design with color is a whole different ball game, and it's something that I know I covered with my 2353 class. And I'm sure Gene, if anybody had Gene, I'm sure you had that color lecture, and there's a lot of good stuff about it. Using color for various and sundry ethnic groups and various psychological profiles, etc. It's very cool stuff, but that's not what this class is about. This class is about reproducing color, right? So we're going to be dealing with color theory and its application to color reproduction. And as I alluded to this morning, what we're taught in kindergarten about color is all wrong. In fact, if I were to ask you what the primary colors are, you would probably say yellow, red, and blue, wouldn't you? But they're not. I mean, red is not a print primary color. Cyan is. Magenta is, right? Blue is not a primary color, and yellow is a primary color of printing, but not of monitors. And so it's all wrong. The whole Play-Doh thing, the finger paints, all that kind of stuff is wrong. And it takes a little bit of time to understand how color actually works so that you can deal with it in color reproduction. Now, number 2 on the screen up there, you'll see is the impact and importance of lighting. We did that today. Now, I really hope that you never forget what you saw this morning, because it really should embed in your mind the importance of setting things properly. All right, then third, we're going to be talking about capturing faithful reproductions. Faithful means that you're trying to reproduce as close as possible to the original. And we're going to be doing that. You remember in 3351, you took an IT8 and you scanned it, and from that we did a profile. Well, Ken and I are going to have you set up a profile for a digital camera too. We're going to take the same digital camera we're playing with today, and in the dark room there is a copy camera stand, and it has an arm to hold the camera, and you can put something small like a keychain or whatever. By the way, did you get your wallet back?
Yep.
That's good. You get your
Yeah.
All right. Good. We're going to set that up to photograph an item. Probably we'll also photograph the Gray Tag Macbeth color checker. And the idea is if a color is a certain color in the original, you want to capture that color, not some other color. All right? That is a big job. It's a very complex job, and we're going to be working on that. Now, there's a new term that's here. It's called color spaces. If you might have noticed, I pointed it out. If this is the classroom over there, up on the wall, let's see if I'm looking over on that side, there's these big posters showing like a horseshoe. We're going to talk a lot about that. It's called a color space, and it goes back to this CIE I was telling you about this morning, the Commission Internationale de Éclairage. And we're going to learn about the color space and how it interacts with your vision, and how the different devices reproduce different portions of the color space. So you can see that color spaces are weird names like LAB. RGB, you should be familiar with RGB, and CMYK too as well. But what about HSB, spot, and hexadecimal? Maybe you know something about hexadecimal, especially if you're involved with web design, because hexadecimal is how you define color for websites. We're going to measure color. One of the most important axioms of technology is if you can't measure it, you cannot control it. All right, and so we have to be able to measure color. So we are not talking about, is this royal blue, or is this green, or is it bile puke green, or whatever, right? Is it chartreuse? I don't know what the hell color chartreuse is, but I can tell you what the numbers are. I can measure it. So I'm not so much worried about words that define colors, but numbers, math, different descriptive systems that describe color. Because if I can measure it, then I can control it, and that's what we want to do. This class is production control, isn't it? It means you're in charge. The color's not in charge. You are. And that's what we have to get to. All right, so we're going to be using spectrophotometers. When you were in 3351, I showed it to you. You never used it. Colorimeters. Colorimeter is what you put in front of your computer monitor to characterize and calibrate it. All right, it's called a colorimeter. And of course, you're going to be using a densitometer. You've all used that in the press class in one way or the other. And of course, you'll be doing some printing in this class as well, so you'll be using the densitometer. Color management systems. I'm just going to leave it at that at this point. Color management systems is a big thing. I will tell you that in 3051, I talked to you about calibrate, characterize, and convert, right? The 3 C's. And so we'll be building upon that. So that what we'll do is we'll take the digital press in 110, the Genie J75 Xerox machine, and we will calibrate it. So Ken, Harold, and I are going to walk you through the actual calibration of that device so that it prints what it's supposed to do. And then we will print some targets and characterize it. Well, like we said, that calibration is doing what it's supposed to do, but characterization is unique features of whatever it's doing. And then we will use all of that in Photoshop and other ways to create a profile so that we send a file that will actually print well. So if you think about it, like I'm saying, the Marvin prints terribly, but by the time this class is over, you will be able to print beautiful stuff on Marvin, because we will calibrate it, characterize it, and then convert according to that characterization. And that's all color management systems. All right, so in order to get to color management systems, as you see, you've got to do calibration and characterization, blah, blah, blah. All right, then we'll talk about how color originals are separated into process color. See, in the world, contrary to what kindergarten teacher taught you, the colors are red, green, and blue. There's no yellow involved. All right, red, green, and blue. Your monitor's using red, green, and blue. Your eyes use red, green, and blue. Your camera uses red, green, and blue. But when you want to reproduce those things, you have to use cyan, magenta, yellow, and black. And to change from one system to another, I know you've seen convert to profile or image color mode, whatever. You've seen that, right? But the actual process of how color that is green turns into CMYK values is quite a convoluted and amazing thing. We've looked at a little bit of the effects of paper and ink this morning. I showed you the example of that. We're going to use color editing in Photoshop. We're going to produce pages in color and in design. You're going to trap, which you don't know yet, but we will be doing next week. And we'll talk about delivering files, color proofing, and then the big thing is towards the top of page 3, and that is swap, snap, grackle first, and G7. All right, so there's a bunch of different acronyms that we'll be doing, and based upon all of this stuff, you will be able to go out there and control color. Okay. Now, when you look at the page 3, you'll see that there's also your textbooks that will be for this class, and I'd like to show you these things. Now, first of all, you know the Handbook of Print Media. You just download it. You should already have that from a previous class. It's on, not in Blackboard, but it's on our server. And I promised that Helmut Kippen, who is the author of the book, that I would let you, only you have it. So I can't put it out, on the server, on the outside web server or anything. So I have to hide it. So we'll need that. And for the most part, all I use that for is pictures. And so there will be times where I'll be bringing up those files on the screen so that you can look at illustrations and examples of things. Now, the next thing is the CMYK book. Now, I want to show this to you. And you can see in the syllabus that there is a set of instructions for getting this book. This is not a brand new thing. It's been around for a while. And a guy here in Houston actually created this, and his name is Gary Nichols. Now, Gary had asked me about this, and what he had given me in terms of words was so bad, so poorly written, that I edited it for him. And for that reason, he said for all times, he will give you a really cheap price on it. All right, so my students forever and ever get this cheap as compared to buying it in the open market. You can look, you might try Amazon to see if you can find it or whatever. But if you call Gary, he should give you a good price. In the syllabus, it gives you exact words for words what I asked him about, So he'll give it to you. All right, so it's a lot of money. But I want to show you this. First of all, Gary wrote it for graphic designers, okay? Because graphic designers need to have an understanding of how to prepare files so that they output properly. All right, the second thing is that it was printed here in Houston by Tim Tully, who owns Southwest Precision Printers, which is the largest printing company in Houston. Tim is a member of our advisory board, and he won many awards for the printing of this book. All right, all the way to the national, they call them the Bennies, after Ben Franklin. So he won Bennies, he won the local Graphic Excellence Awards. Scotty won, actually, a Graphic Excellence Award, didn't you? Yeah, you did. But Tim won Best of Show for this book. So you might remember, some of you went to that show last year. and best of show for the printing of this book. So it's really, really good printing. And as you go through it, there's a whole bunch of really concise synopses of technology and theory of color that go through this. And it doesn't take an awful lot of space. And what I like most about it is he gives you the original photograph. This is actually a photographic print. It's not a inkjet. And then you can scan with it, and he shows you all sorts of things that go wrong with your scanning and gives you examples of what happens. That's what I really like. I like to see the image and what goes on with it, what happens to it as a result. Then, so the same image used over and over and over again, and with different captions, different descriptions of what happens. There's all kinds of Photoshop screens, and how you would set this, that, and the other thing. But this, what's right in here, in the middle, this is worth its weight in gold. Right? Now, I was telling my friend that I was mentioning this morning that the best way to pick a color for something that's going to be done in screen printing is to give a number, okay? Not some file. Because they don't print in CMYK with screen printing on big banners. They print with ink. Right? And so here, what are on all these pages is percentages. So at this point, all the yellow is all blank. There's no yellow in any of these. And then it has 10% magenta, no cyan, etc. So it shows you what the percentages of CMYK look like. Now, there are several different places that you can get tables like this, but none of them are as accurate. Now, what I think is really cool is every book that he had produced, they actually put the density number of each color on the front page. So you know that the quality control was very tight. And that's what this part is. It shows you the actual percentages of what different colors will look like on good stuff. So it's a very valuable thing. Then, the most important thing comes in here with skin tones. Again, there is nothing that you can do to be worse than screwing up somebody's skin tone, right? And what they do is he has examples of different flesh tones, all right? And this is the way we human beings are. We have different colors. And that's okay. We want to have different colors because that's the way we are. But the thing is that if you are somebody who is a güero like me, I don't want to be all red, okay? And someone who has dark complexion doesn't want to be blue. And it happens all the time because of settings that are wrong. So what he's done here is he gives these, and of course it's always women, all right, because of the beard. I don't want to be sexist, right? So anyway, always women, and you can see the color of the flesh tones. And what he does then is he gives you CMYK numbers as targets. So you have an idea of what the numbers ought to be. And then you see here what goes wrong. Now, the capturing of the detail in the shadows is very bad on CCDs in particular. Now, here's what happens. You have an image. Let's see if I can find something like that. All right, so you've got this image that you see up there, right? Now, that image was shot by Ken's predecessor for me using one of our Canon cameras. And it was shot in the dark room in the other campus. And I'd like you to kind of notice how dark the wall is, right, behind it. In comparison to everything else. You see how the wall's pretty dark? Is the wall that dark? You know, all of our rooms are painted the same color gray. So, now they're nowhere near that dark. All right, so it's not capturing much. Now the other thing is that over in this area, there's a lot of detail there, but it's just gone. So interestingly enough, the digital camera, when you shoot an image, much of the shadow detail is just gone. Or so you think. One of the greatest things about Photoshop now is a tool that lets you pull the detail out of shadows. I'll show you how to use that in lab sometime. But it's called a shadow tool. You have highlight shadows. and you can either put detail back into highlights, like for example, this is all blasted out in here. There's no detail in here. I can bring detail back into highlights. I can bring detail back into shadows. So the CCD doesn't show you the detail very well, but you can extract it. It's recorded in the file, but the differences in the shadows are often so small that you can't really see them on the screen. You have to extract them, to pull them out. And tools today are very, very accurate in doing that, especially in Photoshop. It used to be that the only tool that would do that was Aperture, Apple's Aperture, and they stopped making Aperture, so Adobe kind of used that technology and brought it into both Lightroom will do it as well as Photoshop. Okay, we have talked about in another class DMAX, D, capital D, and then subscript MAX. That's a process of trying to find out the maximum density that a scanner will capture. And you might remember, and if you look at the blue and white striped sheet, you can see that there's no ink that prints any darker than 1.70. Can you remember that? That ink is nowhere near as dark as images are. But many scanners advertise DMAXs of 3.70, which means that it's theoretically supposed to be able to capture an image that's so dark that it has a density of 3.70, which is almost, if you remember the whole math issue with regards to densitometry, that's almost 1/10,000th of the light. It's very, 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 very dark area. So it is like, why? Why do I need all that data when it's not ever going to be used? There's no way to reproduce it. Okay, so our scanner, the one we have upstairs, or over there, in the other room, it has a max of 3.7. Another one I found online boasts 4.20. Now, when you're looking at something like that, that can be a really big selling point to you, is thinking, well, that's a lot of density range. It goes all the way up to 3.7 or 4.2. However, if you go back and think about the actual print process, it means that you're capturing a whole bunch of data that you can't possibly reproduce. And that's a very, very, very disorienting thing for people who look at an image on a screen, for example, and see the infinite dark of nothing, right, in the shadows, and then you see a printed version in which the shadows are nowhere near as dark. So there is an issue there when you have a density that's that much different than what you can actually output. You see 3.7 or 4.2, it's too much. Some desktop scanners let you do transparencies and reflective originals. Ours does. Then, the last thing I would tell you about desktop scanners are you should have the ITA target. Now, I have shown you that the textbook that I'm suggesting you get for this class has in it an IT8 as well as the reference file that you need for the IT8. Then those are really necessary for you to have an IT8. If you ever want to have anything to do with graphic design, photography, pre-press, print production, whatever, you need an IT8, and you have to take care of it as well. So I suggest you look for something like that gives you the software. We're using, see, the software that came with our scanner doesn't work anymore because it was for an operating system too far back. So we moved to i1, right, Ken? i1 software that we use to create our profiles.
Yes.
So the software works, but it's using a different image. All right. The next thing that I had to mention to you is slide scanners. Slide scanners had a really big popularity for a while and are kind of falling out. A slide is this big. It's 35 millimeters from corner to corner. Okay, it's not a very big piece of film. And these slide scanners, oh, by the way, motion picture film is also 35 millimeter. The original film that they use to capture. So it's 35 millimeters from corner to corner. And if you just kind of stop and think that an inch is 25.4 millimeters, 35 millimeters like an inch and a quarter from corner to corner, it's not a very big film, is it? And so when you're going to enlarge that to put it on a big screen in a theater, it better be pretty darn good film, huh? Very high resolution in the film itself, yes? Because if you're going to explode it to be that big, you better have a lot of smoothness, of accuracy in the film itself. So slide film is amazing stuff. It's the same thing that they used to use to capture motion pictures. So it's very, very high density, very, very high resolution film. So if you have an image this big, I mean, where would you ever use an image that big? Like nowhere, right? You got to blow it up. And so a slide scanner was designed with real high resolution so that you could make something like 4, 5, 6,000 pixels per inch. Because if you have an inch and a quarter image and you need it to be 10 inches, you got to have a bunch of pixels, don't you? You have to enlarge a lot. So slide scanners were developed for that. For a while, believe it or not, a lot of our students got internships a decade ago working for the library at U of H. And what they did all day was run slide scanner. Because there were billions of slides that were in the library that were used for teaching. You know, about things like, God knows, biology or chemistry or whatever. And they needed to digitize all those. So if you stop and think about it, if you find an image that you want to show, like I showed you some images of a Dynapon screen camera or a scanner, if you think about how easy it is to find something like that and have a digital image on the screen and just put it up, think about how it was when you have to walk over to the library and check out a box of slides, get a slide projector, and show it to your class. All right? Can you get that the idea? So the library scanned hundreds of thousands of slides. And that's what our people would do. So they had an automatic feeder. So you put a hopper of these slides in, and it would put a slide, automatically feed it in, scan it, you bring it up, check it, do correction, whatever, then go on to the next one, and the next one, and the next one. So those were slide scanners. Digital cameras. I really wish that I could show you. In fact, I think I might just turn this around and show you. And we got to figure a way to show my computer on this system.
Yeah.
Because otherwise it's not possible. Now, I'll turn this around and show it to you. But let me give you a little background. Like I said, I was in Mexico for a couple weeks this summer. And my mother-in-law's house had a maid's quarters in it. And in that room used to live my wife's aunt, Magdalena. And you know the old song Macarena? I used to call it, hey, Magdalena. But anyway, that's where she used to live. She died about 98 or something like that, 98 years old, I think. And in that room, she had an absolutely priceless pair of photographs of her parents, who were my wife's grandparents. And they were up in, you might have thought about or ever seen some of these really, really old photographs. All the people are so stern. Why were they so stern in those photographs? Yeah, they had devices to hold them steady because the lens was open for 3-4 minutes and you couldn't move. Couldn't close your eyes or anything. Right? So they look really stern. But anyway, these were not photographs, they were paintings. But anyway, they were in these oval frames. Now, if you stop and think about sometimes what happens when you marry the wrong person. One of my brothers-in-law's wife passed away, so he got remarried to a slightly crazy woman. And she wanted the frames. So she tore these priceless images, paintings. You just pull them out, put holes in them. I don't know, I guess she pulled it and it tore. All right? And these are like the only pictures my wife has ever seen of her grandparents because they were dead by the time she was born. This is really important stuff. All right? So when this happened, my wife's sister saved them. And so I wasn't going to ask to bring that picture back to the United States because I wouldn't be able to get it back to them, right? And like I say, it's priceless. This is my wife's grandfather, okay? And I also have grandma here. And by the way, people have said that I look like him. Is there any truth to that?
I can see it.
Can you see it?
Those are the same jawline.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, what chance of that is of me, you know, being an Irish Catholic from Los Angeles? How could I look like him from Mexico? As a Spaniard. I guess there is a possibility, but I just don't see it. And where's my? I guess I would beat that. Oh, darn. There we go. And that's my wife's grandma. So I'm just telling you this so that you have an idea of what you can do. I'm going to tell you a story about this because I'm really pleased with this because those images were barely visible. In other words, they were old paintings taken probably or painted more than 100 years ago. Okay, and they were all damaged, holes in them, scratches, all sorts of bad things. And I captured that image with a Canon DSLR. All right, so here, if you stop and think about it, it is like a 20 megapixel camera. If you stop and think about the number of pixels there, you got more than most of the scanners used to have. Really, if you stop and think about it. And besides that, it was this big. All right, each of these pictures were this big, 20 by 24-ish. And how could you ever fit that in a scanner? So what I did is I put this image up in various places in the house, and I used my brother-in-law's 20 megapixel camera. So I looked in different places in the house for glare and all that. It was very, very, very hard to find a place that I could get a good image. But eventually I took it outside, and thank goodness it was a cloudy day, like we talked about this morning. And outside I had my wife hold it up against the wall in the shade, and I captured those images with a regular camera. Now what do you have to do? You have to be really careful to move it, you know, like this until it's square. Right? But you can do that. And in other words, what I'm saying to you, ladies and gentlemen, is that you can use a digital camera as a high-end scanner nowadays. That's awesome, I think. And if you think about this, you know, I have now given the rest of my wife's family and all their grandchildren and great-grandchildren and everything images of what their ancestors look like. I think that's pretty cool. I like this sort of stuff. I hope that you can see the opportunity to use things like this. All right? So I printed a set of them on my home inkjet printer, put them in a frame, and you know everybody's pretty happy to have it. Think about that. If you have something big that you'd like to reproduce, use your digital camera. Okay? Works really well.